Hey guys! Today, we're taking a break from philosophy to dive into psychology. In this video, we'll explore Carl Jung's concept of the shadow and try to understand what it really means using Tyler Joseph's metaphors as an example. More importantly, we'll look at how understanding and accepting your own shadow can help you heal and grow. So, what exactly is the shadow I'm talking about? The shadow represents the parts of ourselves we try to hide, our fears, doubts, and inner conflicts. And Tyler? He's a master at turning these struggles into something everyone can relate to. But before we dive in, let's talk about who came up with this idea in the first place. Carl Gustav Jung was a renowned Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, best known as the founder of analytical psychology. His work had a profound impact on psychology, philosophy, anthropology, religion, and even the arts. Jung is famous for his exploration of the deep aspects of the human psyche, such as the unconscious, archetypes, and symbols. One of Jung's central concepts was the collective unconscious, the idea that there is a level of unconsciousness shared by all people. This collective unconscious contains archetypes, which are universal images and ideas that appear in myths, religions, and dreams. According to Jung, these archetypes shape human perception and behavior. Jung also developed ideas such as the persona, the social mask we wear, and anima/animus, the feminine and masculine aspects within every individual. His work didn't just focus on the individual psyche, but also explored broader questions of spirituality and the meaning of life. According to Carl Jung's concept, the shadow is a part of our personality that contains traits we have suppressed, rejected, or pushed aside. These traits can include negative emotions like aggression, envy, or fear, as well as qualities we consider weaknesses or flaws. We deny and try to bury them because they seem unacceptable or frightening, but they don't just disappear. Instead, they continue to influence our behavior through unconscious patterns. This can manifest as strong negative reactions to behaviors in others that we deem unacceptable, even though those behaviors reflect the very traits we reject in ourselves. For example, someone who suppresses their own aggression may be quick to judge others for expressing anger or being aggressive. Another example is someone unaware of their own insecurities, who may be overly critical of others for being weak or spineless. These projections are ways our unconscious tries to draw attention to the parts of our personality that we suppress.
My name's Blurryface and I care what you think. My name's Blurryface and I care what you think.
We're introduced to Tyler's alter ego, whom he himself presents to us. Blurryface is a personification of the aspects of Tyler that he suppresses or struggles with, his fears, insecurities, and doubts. Tyler doesn't just sing about his shadow. He gives it a form, a name, and a voice, turning Blurryface into a tangible figure with whom he can engage in dialogue through his songs. The song, Fairly Local, also contains many lyrical elements that can be associated with a concept of the shadow. We see Tyler's conflicting thoughts and feelings, which may be tied to his suppressed or denied aspects.
I'm evil to the core. What I shouldn't do, I will. They say I'm emotional. What I wanna say about kill.
These lines of the song can be interpreted as an expression of the shadow, symbolizing suppressed yet unresolved inner impulses. Tyler isn't claiming to be an inherently evil person, but he acknowledges his potential tendencies toward actions that contradict his own beliefs. Jung believed that the shadow often manifests through impulses that are at odds with our conscious personality. In the context of this line, Tyler recognizes his inner conflicts, those parts of himself that clash with the person he strives to be.
I'm not evil to the core. What I shouldn't do, I will fight. I know I'm emotional. What I wanna say, I will try.
In contrast to the previous lines, here Tyler highlights the struggle with the aspects of his shadow that conflict with his conscious goals. He acknowledges his impulses, but strives to control them, which is a key part of the shadow integration process. In Jungian psychology, this process involves becoming aware of the parts of oneself that have been rejected or suppressed, followed by an attempt to find harmony with them. But as we know, his journey has been going on for a very long time, and it's only in Paladin Strait that true integration occurs, but more on that later.
I've got two faces. Blurry's the one I'm not. I've got two faces. Blurry's the one I'm not.
In Goner, Tyler's true self is contrasted with Blurryface. In other words, Tyler doesn't just acknowledge the existence of the shadow, doesn't just give it a name and a form, he tries to separate himself from that part of his personality. We could break down every line of the Blurryface album, but conclusion remains the same. This wasn't just an introduction to a character or alter ego. It's an entity that exists in all of us. Although Blurryface album can't be definitively called an example of Jungian psychology, many of its themes such as inner fears, societal expectations, and the desire for self-acceptance seem to overlap with the concept of the shadow, at least in my opinion. We've explored what the shadow represents and may have even found it within ourselves. As I mentioned before, recognizing the shadow is the first step toward integration. But how does this integration manifest in Tyler? As always, let's step away from the lore and look at this as a metaphor. I think Clancy's entire journey isn't just about a physical escape from Dima, but rather a metaphor for Tyler's internal psychological process. He needs to learn to stop running from his suppressed sides and instead begin integrating them. Dima, at its core, is a prison of Tyler's mind created by a shadow, or Nico, where 9 bishops rule. These bishops represent different aspects of pressure and control over Tyler's identity. They resemble voices that amplify his inner fears, symbolizing different parts of what's been suppressed or rejected in his psyche. Nico, as the leader of the bishops, is the embodiment of Blurryface, making him a key aspect of Tyler's shadow. We've seen the shadow in the form of Blurryface in what we could call the real world. It's still Tyler, but with distinct traits that reveal a different personality. However, in the inner world, the shadow appears in its true form as Tyler imagines it, Nico. The story of escaping from the city of Dima is Tyler's quest for liberation from the grip of his shadow. But according to Jungian theory, fully suppressing the shadow is impossible and harmful. It must be integrated. His escape is only temporary, and each time, the shadow, in the form of Nico, catches up with him again and again. It's a cycle, and that cycle is powerful.
I am a citizen. I am an escapee. I am an exception. I am returning to Trench. I am Clancy.
Tyler, or rather Clancy, returns to Dima to consciously face Nico. This is a pivotal moment indicating that Tyler no longer wants to avoid this part of himself. He understands that only by consciously confronting Nico can he find true liberation.
So few, so proud, so emotional. Hello, Clancy.
When Nico grabs Tyler by the neck once again, it can be interpreted as the shadow's attempt to regain control over his identity, suppressing his will through fear. But this time Tyler is prepared. He won't hide or run anymore. We can see it in the expression on his face.
I'll be right there, but you'll have to grab my throat and lift me in the air. If you need anyone, I'll stop my plans, but you'll have to tie me down and then break both my hands. If you need anyone.
Referring back to the lines from Jumpsuit, we see Tyler's readiness for Nico to grab him by the neck again. This is a sign of his inner strength. He's always known where this would lead, but he also knows that he won't give up and will keep trying to escape over and over. In that moment, Tyler seems to see escape as the only right choice. But in Paladin Strait, he's no longer the same person. He understands that this aspect of his personality will always be part of his life, but now he's ready to consciously engage with it and possibly transform this inner conflict. Just a reminder, this is my subjective opinion. I have no idea what Ty actually meant or what he's thinking. But it seemed to me that there's a real reflection of the shadow concept here. I don't know what's in store for us next, and to be honest, the headless Clancy hints are a bit unsettling. So, we've explored the shadow concept and how it relates to Tyler and his songs. But what should you do if you discover shadow traits within yourself, and how can you integrate them? From everything we've discussed so far, we've learned the first step toward integrating the shadow is becoming aware of its existence. Self-analysis can help with this. Listen to yourself and honestly ask, what traits do I reject in myself? What emotions am I suppressing? What situations cause me the most discomfort? Pay attention to situations or people that trigger strong negative emotions in you. Most often, this reflects something you're not accepting in yourself. After acknowledging the shadow, it's important to study it. This requires paying attention to your reactions, emotions, and behavior. You need to observe how your suppressed traits manifest in daily life. I recommend keeping a journal. Journaling can help you track recurring behavior patterns, emotions, and situations that stir unpleasant feelings. This will help you understand how and when your shadow reveals itself. Accepting the shadow is a key step toward integration. Instead of continuing to reject or fight these traits, you need to learn to accept them as part of yourself. Acknowledge that the qualities you suppress are also part of who you are, and their existence doesn't make you a bad person. For example, aggression can be transformed into strength to protect yourself and your interests, and fear can become caution and sound judgment. And what should you do after all these steps? That's point number 4. When we accept our shadow, we can begin to use its energies constructively. The emotions and traits that were once suppressed can become sources of strength, creativity, and awareness. Many people express their shadow through art, music, literature, or other forms of creativity. This helps transform suppressed emotions into something positive. This is exactly what Tyler does. Often, people view aggression as a major flaw. And that's true if the aggression is uncontrolled and you're taking out your anger on others. But aggression can be transformed into energy. It's okay to be angry. It's just as human an emotion as any other. Here's a small example. I'm quite an emotional and sensitive person. I can start crying for no significant reason, and it often interferes with my life, especially when a crying fit begins and becomes uncontrollable. In those moments, I feel apathy, helplessness, and all those things that make it hard to get up and act. I found a way out through anger. I get angry, not at myself, not at anyone in particular, just because. I know it sounds strange, but when these episodes happen, I turn on aggressive music and tap into that energy. Aggression helps me stop crying. It may seem like a silly example, but it illustrates the kind of integration that can be seen in everyday life. Integrating the shadow is a challenging but necessary process for personal growth and achieving inner harmony. This journey requires honesty with oneself, patience, and the willingness to confront what may seem frightening or unwanted. However, as the shadow becomes conscious and accepted, a person becomes more whole, harmonious, and capable of living a fuller life. The information you received in this video is quite superficial, but if you're interested in this topic, please let me know in the comments, and I'll create a video exploring different techniques for working with the shadow.